Danny Flexen here for Seconds Out. Delighted to be joined by the ever impatient Adam Booth. Adam, how are you?
All right, thank you. I'm still here anyway.
We all appreciate it. I did have to block the exits. People should know that with my Trumpton boots, as Adam said earlier.
People won't know what that is.
For kids, Google, what was it, Trip to Trumpton, was that what it's called?
Trumpton.
Just called Trumpton. It's about a group of firemen.
Yeah, just look at your boots. Show them, post a picture of your boots.
I will. I'll take a picture later and I'll post it onto the video.
This is going like a bit of a Coogan Cassidy interview. Can we steer it on a more professional line?
What a wonderful compliment, Adam, first of all. Troy Williamson, Josh Kelly, great fight, all British for the super welterweight title of the country as well. You said up there it only took you less than 5 minutes to agree to this fight. Why is this the right fight for Josh right now?
28 years old, coming into his prime. Styles make fights. The progression of Josh as a man and mentally over the last year and a half has been incredible. I've always been an advocate of Josh's ability. I've always said he's the most naturally gifted fighter I've ever worked with. That doesn't change. That hasn't changed. His loss to Avanesian was solely because of reasons completely away from boxing, away from the fight ring, away from the gym. But we needed the pressure of the Avanesian situation to really expose it. Only then did we realise that these things have been showing their sort of peppering its head up for quite a while. And he's worked really hard and really well on himself to become the fella that he is today. And the fella that he is today is the version that gives him the best chance of actually being what he can be as a fighter. And so knowing all the backstory behind, you know, the great performances, the loss and everything that's gone on, I knew that this was the right fight for Josh to now have a breakthrough to the next level as part of his story.
Now, looking before the Avanesian fight, how much of a difference do you feel the move up to 154 pounds will make to Josh going into this one?
Well, he's 28 years old, and so from the age of 24 to 28, we all know that there is a natural growth that goes on, and we put on weight. Yeah, whether it's a jelly belly or definite muscle development. And at the start of his career, he was already pretty tight as a welterweight anyway. So once we decided to, and he's always sparred with middles, super middles, light heavies. So the sturdiness and the type of physical demand of going up to super welter is comfortable for him. And so it was. We thought about it before, but after the year out, we were convinced that it was the right time to go up.
How do you assess Troy as a fighter?
I really like Troy as a fighter. I was there when he beat Ted Cheeseman, and I thought he fought out of his skin. And just like whenever I'm in competitive fights, I obviously there's a period of time at the start where I become obsessed with them, and I watch them, and I watch all of the good habits, all of the bad habits, their strengths, their weaknesses, and I go watch it over and over again until eventually I make my notes, and then I edit my notes until I'm comfortable with what I've ended up with. And I think Troy is he's got some very, very obvious, clear and strong elements to his game. I like him as a fighter, but I do believe styles make fights, and Josh Kelly is the kryptonite for the Troy Williamson style.
Did you come to that conclusion after going through your notes, or was that something when you watched the Cheeseman fight you already had that kind of seed in your mind?
Well, because I'd watched Troy in the Cheeseman fight, and obviously subsequently a couple of times because we knew Josh was going to move up to super welter, I kind of recognised his style and the sort of the mindset and the mentality and the attitude that comes along with that style. And I've seen so many times the type of style that allows Josh to express a certain style and strength that he has, and so yeah, just subconsciously as well as consciously, I believe that it was the right style for him.
I want to know a bit more about your process, because you talked about making notes, editing them down until you got a set that you're comfortable with. Are these notes on your phone? Are these mental notes? Do you write it down somewhere? And what's the editing process like? Way before I had an iPhone, so way back, I remember, like with the Jean-Marc Mormac fight, I remember I had a
book. It was a red book, and on the front of it, I wrote with the pen, "Think and sleep," because I find myself like either trying to get to sleep at night, thinking about the fight, the style, why a fighter moves like this, why he does that, or I'd wake up thinking about it, and it would always interrupt my sleep. But I found that writing it down as I thought it allowed me to get rid of the thought and fall asleep. And I've just sort of progressed that now onto sort of modern day technology and having an iPhone.
And how does the editing process work? So you've got this big list of notes you made presumably at the time. How do you discount some of the things that were your original impressions?
Because I go back and I watch something repeatedly to see, okay, I've seen that, but is that actually a habit? Is it really an ingrained habit, or is it just something that happened as an anomaly at this moment in time? And sort of to try and, because you don't want to get fixated on things that actually aren't proven habits. And because Troy's, because he's proven what he is as a fighter, he's also shown what he is as a fighter. Now, he can make slight adjustments. You might change the angle of a right hand when pressing forward. You could make some slight adjustments, but essentially, like his instinctive habits, his rhythm, how he copes with certain situations, how he doesn't cope with certain situations, there's because he's been in these competitive fights that he's come through and won, these habits have been highlighted.
What can the winner of this fight go on to achieve? Where does this place them on the world scene, for example?
Well, it's certainly, the winner of this fight is certainly European level. And if you're European level, then you're top 10 in the world. So I do think that this fight projects both of them genuinely into top 10, top 15 in the world. Because if I've gone through the super welterweight rankings, and this is, in Europe, this is one of the juiciest matchups you can find. So I think justifiably, the winner of this fight moves on.
You've got another fighter, world class, no doubt, in Mick Conlan. He's got a fight coming up against Kareem Guerfi in Belfast. Why is Guerfi the right man at this stage? I'm guessing Conlan wants another world title shot, but maybe that's not forthcoming at the moment.
Well, that's kind of what it is. We needed someone that was experienced, had high level competition behind them. Everything now, whilst waiting for another world title fight, everything's a World Cup semi-final for Mick, and so it's basically a fight where we keep Mick active, we keep him evolving as a fighter, in the hope that the world title fight comes after another win.
You've got Harlem Eubank out soon as well, main eventing for the first time against Tom Farrell this time around. Good fight. What I would say is, though, is Farrell that much better, certainly on paper, than a Sean Dodd on some of the other guys that Harlem's fought recently? Is there a progression, I guess, is the question?
I think yes. Because he poses certain questions, and also you've got the pressure of stepping up now out of the spotlight, having learned your trade in the shadow, so to speak. That's an element that Harlem's got to deal with as well. So I think for this step in his career, for the amount of fights that he's had, and for where he's been in his career, I think this is actually a fantastic bit of matchmaking by Nissa Sauerland.
I think a lot of people would like to see an all-British kind of fight between him and Dalton Smith, the British champion, where the winner goes on, and similar to Williamson against Kelly. Smith's obviously got to defend first against Casey Benjamin. That's no foregone conclusion. But is a Smith showdown something you'd be interested in the future?
In the future, at the moment, Dalton's ahead of Harlem in terms of where he's at as a accomplished fighter. He's further down that road. But Harlem's improvement over the last 2 or 3 years has been such a steep trajectory. We're sort of keeping him where he is at the moment just to make sure that we consolidate where he is as a fighter. But if Harlem is the perfect example of what a professional fighter should be, or what a coach hopes a professional fighter can be, because he never has a bad day. He'll turn up, he's always buoyant, you can see that he's happy to be doing what he's doing on a daily basis. And it's an exciting one for me, because he's not just a potentially championship level fighter, but everyone loves Harlem as well. He's such a great character. He's got so much to say for himself. He's interesting, he's quirky, he's fun, but he can fight. He's got a lot of energy inside him, and he's had a baptism of fire in the gym with the people that he's had to spar with. And now it's time to sort of let him step into the spotlight and see how far he can go.
Now, he would have got some of the spotlight for his scheduled last fight on the Eubank Jr. Benn card that was postponed at very short notice, as it turned out. Before talking about that in more detail, what was that experience of that fight week like for you, kind of the ups and downs?
I wasn't really involved in it. Harlem was on the bill, but kind of realised halfway through the week that it probably wasn't going to happen. And it wasn't necessarily a challenging fight for him anyway. So for me, it didn't really matter.
What did you make of the situation that unfolded, and more to the point, the efforts made to keep the show on the road, as it were, despite opposition from the board and from the fans at some point?
So what are you asking?
I'm asking you, what do you feel about that? Do you feel it was...
I don't feel happy about it. I think the whole thing's messy as a coach, and I've got, these young men that have got dreams and ambitions as, gladiators and professional fighters, and I want to help guide them and steer them, but also protect them. That this whole thing about doping and how doping is handled and monitored and tested and dealt with when there's a positive or a question mark, I have no confidence in the situation, and that's how it's left me feeling that the whole thing's an absolute fucking mess. And as a coach, as a license holder of the Board of Control, and as a manager of these young boys, I would like to see it a bit clearer so that we can have confidence in the business that we work in.
What would that entail? Is that VADA becoming more recognised, or recognised in any degree by the board?
I mean, we can sit here and talk through lots of detail and theories about where it can be improved, but you'll run out of battery. And I just hope it does.
One thing I did want to ask is, from a trainer and manager's perspective, how easy is it to share the trust you have with nutritionists, strength and conditioners, and people that work with your boxer but not directly on boxing?
How difficult is it to share my trust?
Yeah, to put your trust in them to take that duty of care over your fighters, because ultimately you're responsible for the fighter, but there's a certain amount of licensing out when you use nutritionists and S&C.
What they're doing is they're telling them what foods to eat, how many calories to have, and how to portion it in terms of protein, carbs, fats, and vitamins and minerals. So, no, I have complete confidence, and I know the fighters that I work with. My trust in my fighters is based on them, and my trust in them, and knowing that what their moral compass is and how they go about their lives and their careers.
It's not morals, it's also diligence involved. So, and I don't want to kind of talk too specifically about what's just occurred. But if one of your fighters had a supplement, for example, and there was something in there that shouldn't have been, as per the board, who takes responsibility for that? Is it the person who's prescribed it, like a nutritionist, or is it the boxer themselves for not being more diligent in their, investigations?
Every fully grown adult is responsible for themselves. They know that there's a website where they can put every compound in of every ingredient, and it tells you whether it's permitted or banned in training and competition. And they know that. So, it's just like, but, if they're eating a fillet of salmon or red lentil pasta or broccoli or chicken breast, I think they're pretty confident that they don't need to type that shit into the website. So that's where my confidence is based on the fact that they know what they're doing.
And just finally, Tyson Fury, Derek Chisora 3 will take place on December the 3rd at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Does that fight do anything for you, get your juices flowing?
Yeah, I don't think you can ever underestimate the heavyweight division, and you've got two characters, and that's what the sport needs. Is these characters fighting each other, and if AJ and Tyson aren't getting it on, then it's as good a fight within this sort of commercial realm that we can get. And don't underestimate Derek, because I know what firsthand I know what Derek's like, and on any given day he's a nightmare for any given heavyweight. If Derek can turn up where his head's all over the place and he doesn't perform, or Derek can turn up and give you an absolute nightmare. And so a big part of it is which Derek is going to turn up, because if it's the handful nightmare version of Derek, then you're going to be in for an entertaining night. I'm not discounting it, that's for sure.
So last question then, we've seen Chisora beaten twice by Fury. The first time was competitive, the second time not so much. If you were the main man in his corner, Chisora's, what would you advise him to do differently this time around?
Oh no, I'm not going to answer that question. I think there's a couple of obvious things. And like easier said than done, because Tyson's 6'9" with those freakishly long arms, and just what has appeared to have evolved into a galvanized belief and comfortable confidence in himself, you know, where he's realized that nothing really matters and that you just go out there and be who you are and express yourself. So, you know, Tyson's a big character, a strong character, and Derek's got his work cut out. Tyson's the favourite, and a big favourite, and there's no doubt about that. But I know what a motivated, energised Derek Chisora, you know, he can pose problems for fellas.
Brilliant, Adam. Always a pleasure.